Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on this knife, and as you can see, this is the Albers Cutlery Company Lambfoot in Snakewood. And this is the most recent release from Albers Cutlery Company. Eric Albers is a cutler that worked for places like Canal Street, and then now has his own cutlery company, and it's a very small outfit. So these are really what I would call like a mid-tech, or the traditional knife version of a mid-tech. It's semi-custom. I think that you could definitely say that it's handmade, but it's not necessarily a one-off custom or something like that. But at the same time, it's not a production knife, even in the way that Great Eastern Cutlery is. So certainly not in the way that a case knife is. So it's somewhere between a true custom, one person working on it and made just for you, and a Great Eastern Cutlery where it's made in small numbers comparatively, but definitely in a production setting. So I bought this knife because I have always really wanted to have one of these Albers in my collection. I have had some before. The last one I had bad blade wrap, really bad blade wrap. Ended up selling it to someone who really wanted it and knew and didn't care about the blade wrap, and that's partly because these are really tough to get. So I have actually missed the last couple runs that they've had, or I guess releases, drops, however you want to call it, because they are just really tough to get. I think that they go quicker than Great Eastern Cutlery knives, or at least comparatively. And I was able to get this one, and it's one that I'm glad that I got, because it is a Lambfoot, and a Lambfoot is a really interesting pattern that you don't see a whole lot. So the only other Lambfoot I have is this knife, which is the Charlie Campagna Special Factory Order for Way North Cutlery, his brand, by Great Eastern Cutlery. And you can see Sheffield design, American made. And so the reason for that is because the Lambfoot is a traditional British or English or UK pattern. And so it's a knife or a pattern that really wasn't made in America until, at least as people can tell, until this knife was made. So this is on the Great Eastern Cutlery 93 frame, although it is a little different than the normal 93. And you can see it has a similar shape and blade shape, handle and blade shape, to this Albers. But I want to show you some comparison here between the two. You can see that the GEC is a little bit longer, a little bit more slender in both the blade and the handle. And you see both types. You see knives a little bit stouter like this from the UK and vintage knives, and you see some like this also. But I really enjoy this knife. I have actually modified it. I carry and use it. I haven't recently, but I did when I got it, and so I really enjoy it. And I wanted to check out another American Lambfoot. Now there have been others since then. I know Titusville Cutlery and the Daniels family brands have made some Lambfoots, but this one is, I knew it would be a really beautiful Lambfoot. You can see it does have that real Lambfoot stamp on the tang, and then Albers Cutco USA. And it is a really, really beautiful knife. Albers knives are known for having really beautiful covers, and that is true on this knife. This is the only Snakewood knife that I own. I have had some in the past, but I don't have any right now. It's not necessarily my favorite wood, although it's certainly very interesting. But this is nice looking Snakewood. You can see that it's got lots of character, lots of those, dots, whatever you want to call them there. The fit is incredible. So you can see that these pins are all very flush. They are not sunk like on some or most GECs. They are flush and very well done. No cracks. Just very nicely made. The fit between the covers and the bolsters also very nice. Now you can see it kind of looks like there's a gap there, but when I look up, you really can't see a gap. There might just be a little kind of like speckles of light that come through. It's not a true gap there. So it's just, I think, the way it's finished really that makes it look like that. But really the finishing is really beautiful. You can see it has the traditional style of kick. It's a little bit more towards the American style, but still, you know, like the traditional Lambfoot kick, as you can see on the Waynorth. But very cool blade. And so to kind of define a Lambfoot, it's really the blade shape. So rather than like on a sheepfoot where the spine and edge are parallel, so they're parallel like so, and then it has a rounded curve and then a straight edge down to the tip. It has the spine generally curves, is angled downwards toward the tip. It's not parallel with the edge, it's angled downward, and then still has that turn and often kind of a similar look, but not quite the same. So that's really what makes it a Lambfoot. There are knives that are not swaybacks that are called Lambfoots, English made knives, but I think typically, you know, it has this swayback. And I think it's a really beautiful example of a Lambfoot. No half stop on this, really nice action, easy to pinch, which is really nice. One thing, as I mentioned on the Waynorth Lambfoot, which does have a half stop, it sits really deep and I can't really pinch it. In fact, I added this little pseudo easy open to make it a little easier to get your nail into the nail nick. But being, again, a little bit, you know, thicker, the Albers is pinchable, which I always really like, and has great action, nice and smooth, snaps closed nicely. I'd say right around a 5, really well done, and no blade wrap. So that's really nice. I've opened and closed it a good bit. I haven't used this knife, but I have opened and closed it a good bit, and definitely no blade wrap. You can see the tip also sits pretty nicely within the frame. You're not gonna, you know, catch your finger on that tip for sure. And not perfectly centered, but, you know, well enough. It's not gonna rub the side, and it is off center towards the side, which you'd prefer because you generally are putting pressure down towards the pile side when you open the knife. So a really cool knife, one that, like I say, I haven't carried or used, just wanted to get it to check it out, and wanted to show you all. Like I say, these are really difficult to get. I was honestly pretty surprised that I was able to check out. I thought for sure that I was going to try to check out and they weren't going to have the knife, and honestly I thought maybe even after I checked out that you know, it might get oops, the product was not actually in stock email, but I got it, and it's definitely a beautiful, really well made knife. I think this would make a great user. The thing is, these are not inexpensive, so these are more expensive than GECs, depending on where you buy your GEC, I guess, maybe even about twice the price. So this ended up costing, I think, a little over $285, something like that, with shipping and taxes and such. So close to $300. Definitely not inexpensive, but like I say, it is moving towards a custom knife. So I think it's something where, you know, if this is a configuration that you're really interested in, it's a good opportunity to get a knife that's really going to be as well made as I think a lot or most customs, at a little bit less expensive, as long as you can, again, you know, actually buy it on the drop. So a little out of my normal price range, kind of higher than GEC, but also a different thing. I do think it is a different thing, and a very beautiful knife. So this is the Albers Cutlery Company Lambfoot in Snakewood. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave any comments below. I've got lots of other videos like this and more always on the way, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post those other videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this, including an article on the Lambfoot pattern that I did when this knife came out. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.